Hi folks, with Tacitus today, your pushback, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about, I guess there's a few things sort of coalescing and coming in together on this topic, but it's the issue of mixed relationship dating and mixed relationship, marriages and procreation, that sort of thing. Now, we've had Western governments over the last 25 years have moved masses, like even in a place like Australia, the last 20 plus years, there's been, close on 5 million brown and black people have been moved into Australia without the consent of the local population, with most of the time governments denying that they're doing it, using all sorts of deceit and treachery to bring brown people in, bringing them in as students, then converting them into citizens and that sort of thing. So, so anyway, as I've mentioned in other videos, if I go to the most, non-white intensive areas, migrant intensive areas of Australia, and Sydney being the one that's copped the biggest whack of immigrants. Again, brown and black. There's some white immigrants, but not many. If I go to those areas, not even 1% do I see of mixed relationships, particularly not white on with brown or black or anything like that. You see some, Filipinos, for example, seem to be more open to the idea of dating white people. But for the most part, the resistance isn't necessarily from white people, but the way it's projected in the propaganda is that it's only, that there would be, every relationship would be mixed race if it wasn't for those damn fucking fascist fucking white supremacist Nazis everywhere. We've got to, and as usual, only white people are going to be accountable for this issue because they're fucking Nazis. The reality, of course, is quite different. Now, for those who've done a lot of business traveling like I have, I can tell you for an absolute concrete cast iron fact that the white countries, even when I started traveling, which was 30 plus years ago, that the white countries are the least racist out of anywhere on the planet. The least by far. It's not like it's a close run thing. No, the least racist. So the chutzpah involved by the fucking globalists for accusing white people of being uniquely racist and Nazi and fascist. It's an outrageous assertion and claim and accusation. It's simply not true and has never been so. Now, the Indian diaspora and the Arabic diaspora, they're very much tied to marrying or hanging around with dating, whatever. People from their own diaspora. There are a small number of Arab men that will marry white women, but only if the women convert to Islam. That's an absolute sort of must. And they just won't touch any woman that doesn't convert to Islam. So, or certainly by my experience, I'm sure you can find an exception somewhere. But so this is the idea. There may be women that are willing to marry Arabic men, and I'm sure there are, and that's fine. But that you have to convert your religion suggests that the resistance or the pushback is coming from the Arabic men, not from the Christian women. So the idea of saying that's the damn white fascist Nazis aren't prepared, that's bullshit. It's a religious thing. Now, the Indian and Pakistani and so on diaspora, anything from around the subcontinent, the Indians are absolutely fanatically determined to stay genetically pure, and the idea of having procreating with any other race, but a white race in this case, is viewed with serious disdain, and children or the Indians that are thinking of doing it, like say maybe they're born in Australia, that sort of thing, or born in the West, if they're even thinking of dating or marrying or getting serious with a non-Indian non-Pakistani. The family threatens to disown them. They come under incredible pressure to not go outside of their own diaspora, and they come under similar, very intense pressure to only get brides and husbands from the village of their ancestors in the subcontinent. So the pushback there is very much from the brown people, nothing to do with the white people. Now I don't know, how many white people would date Indian girls or Indian boys. I don't know if there'd be much sort of, if the diaspora was open to this idea of interracial mixing. There will be a very few exceptions where lower caste Indians may marry a rich white guy. There's very few exceptions there, but they're doing it for the money and the status. And now we're married, you have to bring out my whole village to Australia. It'd be that sort of thing. Now the Chinese, it rather depends. The lower Chinese peasants, they are open to some, not many, having relationships and marrying white guys, but not many. Some of the upper class Chinese will entertain the possibility of marrying white men or white women, particularly women marrying men primarily. But the guy has to be rich. He can't be just some ordinary dude with an ordinary job. It has to come with lots of benefits and prestige and so on. So outside now, with the white people intermarrying, that's sort of less of an issue. I still find Greeks who and Italians who came particularly from the rural areas, even in the late 1940s and early 1950s, the grandchildren, or they're now the grandchildren, born in Australia, the parents born in Australia. Is a Greek guy who I worked with, and he was getting married. No, congratulations. He brings along to introduce to us all this very Greek, again born in Australia, but this very, very Greek girl, and still with a slight accent where you can tell that they only speak Greek in the house. So now I thought all of given all of the the opportunities that he would have had to because he had a pretty decent job to date outside of his own diaspora, he chose to stay within it, even though again his parents were born here. And I also noticed this in other areas, like say around the Balkans. A guy came from rural Serbia, I think, where his parents came. He was born in Australia, but he's married another Serbian lady from a Serbian family, and he just, no, I'm not interested in marrying into. Now they're white and Christian, so it kind of doesn't matter, I guess. But he's worried that his children, who are now like in first year high school or something, he's worried that his children, when they grow up, they may want to date people from outside the Serbian diaspora, and he thinks that would be a bad thing. He insists he won't force them either way, and he'll let them make the choice, but he'll do everything he can to encourage them. And I think it's not unreasonable to say, hey, well, if you marry that white girl, then I'll cut you out of my will, and things like that. Those sort of things can be brought to bear. So they're not expressly saying you can't marry that one, but they're saying there'll be penalties if you do, and there's a lot of that goes on as well. But this is particularly them against white people, not against local Australians or Anglos, not the other way around. I don't find much pushback the other way around. I'm sure it's there. I mean, given there are many opportunities, given the amount of white people here, that you don't really have to look outside the diaspora. Whereas with the Indians and China, given there's fewer here, they have to hang around in a tight little sort of ghetto and only hang around with each other, and again send back to the village of their ancestors for husbands and brides. It's not unusual for people to meet their husband or bride, when they're the mail order bride type thing. It's not unusual to meet the husband or the bride, the day before the marriage, and you've never seen them before or met them before. I mean, fuck. So I now want to look at the dating apps thing, and I saw a bit of a thing recently from Mark Dice about that, which is quite good. But there's a number of sort of people my wife and I know who've kind of got divorced, or they've ended longer term partnerships and relationships, and they've they've hit the dating scene. I suppose the youngest of them that we know would be, I don't know, mid-40s, something like that. So mid-40s to early 50s. There's a lady that's just turned 50 and she's in quite good condition. Really takes care of herself. So they've hit the dating scene, and there seems to be a lot of dating apps specifically for Indians, or specifically for Chinese, or specifically for Ethiopians, or people from fucking Somalia or Sudan or something. It seems to be all black only, that sort of thing, Chinese only. There seem to be all of those sort of things around and promoted quite heavily and shamelessly. So there, whites aren't allowed, and there are also filters on various, like you look at, say, an Indian dating app in India, that you can filter out white people if you want, or anywhere around the world you can filter out white people. But if there's a whites only dating site or dating app, whatever it's called, that opens up, then that's fascist, Nazi, racist, the sort of thing that fucking Hitler would do. Fucking Hitler. But when all the other races do it, well, no, that's fine. Well, they're allowed to hang around with their own kind if they want. Well, what's wrong with that? Are you opposing that black people get together? Because now you're a double Nazi. You're a Nazi again. You're a Nazi for this. Now you're a Nazi. So it's an absurd sort of bit of dialogue around this, where if white people try and date white people, they're Nazis. But if black people want to only date black people, then they're pure and virtuous and wonderful. And, we have to allow multiculturalism and so on. And if you complain about them doing it, then you're also a Nazi. So it's it's fucking insane. But this is something this is something that's going on. Now, Western governments under the control of the globalists aren't prepared to give up the multiculturalism, because they need that to crush, eradicate, and destroy, white history, white culture, white society. That's a key component of eradicating the white history and everything else, white culture and so on. So they won't let that go. But they're a little concerned, I would suggest, about the balkanization of society, where the Indians hang around together. The Indians only do business with other Indians. They only marry other Indians. They only hang out with other Indians. Chinese hanging out with other Chinese. And so there's almost no, there are countries now within countries in Australia that the integration rate is zip. Even though the government is frantically creating and gifting jobs to all the brown and black people that come to Australia. Here, have a job. Here, affirmative action and quotas and fuck knows what. They're doing quite a lot to create and integrate, the integration there, by giving these people jobs. But I'm looking at fifth generation Indians in Australia or in the West. Fifth generation Indians that have been in the West for 150, 170 years, or in Australia for that long, and they're still sending back for husbands and brides back to India. Same with the Chinese. There are many Chinese that even arrived in the fucking gold rush in the 1850s, and they're still will only marry other Chinese and sending back to the gold to China for husbands and brides. So now, same with places like the migrants being brought in from say Sudan and Somalia, all that sort of thing. Very violent people, and they're the same. They're sending back the husbands and brides. Even though Filipinos are okay to integrate to probably a greater extent than others, but still probably no more than 5, maybe 10% at a stretch. They're sending back to again trying to bring out the village, because you then bring out a bride, then she gets citizenship, then her relatives can be brought out. So you bring out the whole fucking village. That's the scam, and stupid Western governments are allowing this. So really this idea of if only white people can be controlled seems to be the Western government's view. If we can stop white people from marrying and hanging out with other white people, then we've got integration. But it's white people's fault because they're white supremacist fucking Nazis. Whereas all the other people, we don't have to control them. No, it's only white people we have to control. Maybe because they've got a greater control over white people, because white people don't like being called Nazi or something like that. I don't know. But the idea is, as best I can tell, is to bring about, bring about integration by using, all the means that they can to get your boy meets girl and they start dating and marrying and procreate. That seems to be the only game they've got in hand. I don't think it's going to work. If it's going to work, it would have worked by now. There's absolute barrage of propaganda. Any advert you see on television, all TV programs, movies, and it's rare that you will ever see a white couple in an advert anymore. You'll see a black couple, you'll see an Asian couple, you'll see an Indian couple, but very rare, very, very rare now you see a white couple, which is the propaganda way and the government way and the globalist way of telling you, white people are Nazis if they marry other white people. Now, in terms of integration, though, I was talking to a lady a couple of days ago. Now, she's, I think, they came from Poland, I think, northeastern Europe. I think it's Poland. They came from Poland, so they're white Christian and all that sort of stuff. Other than the accent, you wouldn't know that they'd come from anywhere. But her view is, and her husband's view, so she says, is that they want to fully integrate into the Australian society and culture. So they didn't keep any sort of Polish type clothes that would suggest they were Polish or anything like that. The Polish expressions, the habits, the food, they want to be, or some of the food they've kept, but they want to be Australian. They want the kids to be Australian. And they've had 2 children born in Australia, and they're doing everything they can to get them Australianized, get them to be, to nip a, junior lifeguard training and on the beach and to join the Scouts and to do, and if there's school activities, things like that, they encourage the kids to go. And I admire them, actually. Both of them have taken second jobs. Don't have high paying jobs, but they've both taken second jobs just to their absolute mission is for the kids to be Australian, more Australian than the Australians. And they're going to they're certainly going the extra yard to achieve that. Now, you don't see, in fact, you see the opposite from the Indians and the Chinese and the others. They are, no, we have a culture, it's superior to the Western culture. We're morally superior, we're spiritually superior, we're historically superior, culturally superior. Why the fuck would we integrate with these people? They can't even decide what a woman is, for goodness sake. What do we need them for? And they'll only vote for white governments who are prepared to just hand over duty-less entitlements to them. And aside from that, they're not interested. And the minute the goodies run out, which they inevitably will, I think they'll turn on the rest of us, and I don't think it's going to be very pleasant. But that seems to be the only government game: try and shame and blame and accuse any white person that doesn't have a black boyfriend or girlfriend of being a Nazi. Beyond that, and it also suggests that they think, hey, this scam of calling all white people Nazis if they don't do what we want is really working. We've got a good chance we can actually make this happen. And I think that's it. Now, I don't think that's where the resistance is coming from. I don't think, no matter how many white people want to date Indians, for example, I don't think they'll make anything other than the most minuscule difference. Same with the Chinese. Maybe not so much with the black people, but then the black people are in quite a lower proportion here. Something like the Filipinos, but again, I doubt it'll exceed 5 or 10%, and it'll only be the wealthier men who will have that discretion. And there's simply not that many wealthy men. There's not many jobs that pay decent money now. Maybe 2 or 3% of the men. The top 2 or 3% of the men, given the wealth they have, I doubt they would pick women outside of the white diaspora unless there was some commercial or political type benefit in it. Beyond it's a daughter of a senior Chinese government goon, and they want to get favourable treatment in China. Outside of that sort of thing, I can't see anything happening here. So I think they have to break down the diaspora if they want this sort of integration. Clearly, they do in Western governments all over. They're not going to get it through fiddling with dating apps and not allowing white people to filter out blacks, but allowing the blacks and everyone else to filter out the white people. I mean, what bullshit, seriously. But they're going to have to do things like stop all brides being born, the Indian diaspora, or anyone who comes here. Part of the deal is that you cannot import a husband or a bride from the home country. You can only marry and procreate with somebody who was born here, or if you arrive as a couple, when you migrate, you're already married with kids. But if for people born in Australia or the West, you have to pick someone who's Westernized as well. So my take would be that if the Indians could only marry other Indians that are born here, it's very important for them not only to keep the bloodline 100% pure, but to keep the culture pure, and then therefore they place great stock on importing husbands and brides for cultural purity as well as genetic purity. So if you stop that, then I think by another generation, maybe 2 generations, then you would get the integration. But I think if they don't do that, integration is just going to be some pie in the sky, wished for piece of bullshit. You've been a Tacitus today. You're a Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.